Given a probability distribution, we can find the mean, standard deviation, and variance of the probability distribution using our calculator. When we get the results, we want to make sure that we round the results by carrying one more decimal place than the number of decimal places in the random variable x. So one more decimal place than what's in your x values. So our answers are going to have one decimal place since our x's have none. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the one variable stats function. We're going to take our x values and we're going to store them in L1. We're going to take our probability values and we're going to store them in L2. Make sure you list them in your calculator just as they're listed in the table, so that you get the right correspondence between the x and its probability. Once you have those stored in your calculator, you're going to run a one variable stats for L1 and L2. It's been a while since we've used that function, so let's go to our calculator. To enter those in L1 and L2, press Stat and then select Edit. I've already entered them, but you take the time now to enter them in L1 and L2. Pause the video if you need to. Don't forget to double check and make sure they are correct. Now, to run your one variable stats, press Stat, page over to Calc, and press Enter. Remember, we need L1 to be in the list option and L2 to be in the frequency list option. Page down to Calculate and press Enter. The calculator recognizes this as a probability distribution and does not give us an SX value, which was our standard deviation from previous chapters. Instead, the only value we have is the sigma x, and that sigma x is going to be our standard deviation. So x bar is still the mean, 0.713. Then we'll need this whole number to find our variance. Remember, variance is sigma or standard deviation squared. So let's go back to the slide and write down what information we now have. We now know that mu, mean, remember mu is for population mean, on the calculator that was x bar, that is 0.7, rounding to one decimal place. Sigma on the calculator was sigma x, rounding that to one decimal place, that would be 1.0, because 0.968, so 0.96 rounds that up to the 9 up to a 10, so that's 1. Now we need to find variance. So this was our mean, standard deviation, variance. Variance is sigma squared. And remember, to find variance, we need all those decimal places, so 0.9688297,064. And square that, and you get 0.9. So our variance is 0.9, standard deviation 1, and mean 0.7. Now we're going to use those values on our next slide to determine what the minimum and maximum usual values are and decide if a value of 3, if a random variable getting a random variable of 3 is unusual. So our mean from the previous slide was 0.7 and our sigma was 1. Remember, from previous chapter, our maximum usual value is the mean plus 2 times the standard deviation, and our minimum usual value is the mean minus 2 times the standard deviation. So that would be 0.7 plus 2 times 1 and 0.7 plus minus 0.7 minus 2 times 1 for the minimum usual value. So that would be 2.7 for our max and a minimum usual value of negative 1.3. Remember, if we are between those two values, here's negative 1.3 and 2.7. If we're in between them, it's considered usual. If we're outside those values, it's considered not usual. So 3 is up above 2.7, so 3 would be unusual. Is the value of 3 unusual? Yes. 3 is unusual.